Japanese anime is getting more and more attention on the internet, and it has even become one of the representatives of Japanese culture. However, anime also suffered a lot of setbacks before reaching such achievements. In this series, I want to introduce the history of Japanese anime in detail and how they developed from zero to a world-renowned level. Before that, I have to confirm some guidelines. Anime is derived from manga and light novels, but not everything that is drawn can be called manga. Otherwise, I would have to start with the murals during the caveman times. The original concept of manga in Japan came from the Choju Jinbutsu Giga, drawn by the Shingon Buddhist monks in 1100 AD, which anthropomorphized the behavior of animals to reflect the society at the time. Then, in 1814, a man named Katsushika Hokusai drew about 4,000 pictures with reference to the Choju Jinbutsu Giga as a model textbook for learning painting. This painting, printed out with black, gray, and flesh as the primary colors, is neither a cartoon nor a sequential art. Hokusai created a new word called manga and named this work the Hokusai manga. At that time, the word manga represented a new way of painting, a painting technique with random brushwork, concise lines, highlighting the main features of the characters, and the contents included that of mythology, history, and daily life. Then, in 1862, Japanese manga began to be influenced by European culture, and the English artist Charles Workman founded Japan's first manga magazine, the Japan Punch. Japan then began to learn Western painting techniques, and the Maru Maru Chinbun magazine, founded in 1874, began to experiment with speech bubbles in manga. However, the gap between the Japanese manga at that time and what we are now familiar with was still huge. After all, the word manga had not even been popularized from 1814 to 1904. The manga of this period had almost no stories, and they were more inclined to be dark humor magazines. It can be said that it belonged to the embryonic period of manga. Although there is currently no real evidence, it is said that Japan's first full-frame manga with typography dialogue appeared between 1900 and 1904. The man who really made manga known to the public was Kitazawa Yasuji, whose 1905 Tokyo Puck, based on the American magazine Puck, was called the origin of popular Japanese manga magazines. Tokyo Puck is also the first cultural export of the Japanese manga industry to foreign countries, and it has gained a certain degree of popularity in some countries in Asia. His Jiji manga, Tokyo Puck and Rakuten Puck inspired many great future manga artists, and he was the first Japanese professional manga artist. By the way, Tora Haneko, which he serialized in Jiji manga in 1928, is Japan's first serialized manga with a girl as the protagonist, a pioneer work of shoujo manga, much earlier than Princess Knight in 1953. Just 2 years after Tokyo Puck was released, the world's first Japanese anime was born in 1907, called Katsudo Shashin. Well, to be precise, it is the earliest anime we can find, because early nitrate films are incredibly fragile and difficult to preserve. Plus, within 100 years, there was the Great Kanto Earthquake of 1923 and World War II, causing many of the earliest anime and manga to disappear. Therefore, the exact year and author of Katsudo Shashin is unknown, and the year 1907 is only speculated based on the release date of Tokyo Puck to the time when the Nipper's Transformations was screened in Tokyo during 1912. The content of Katsudo Shashin is a little boy in a red hat writing Katsudo Shashin motion picture on the wall, taking off his hat and bowing. You can also find his rating on My Anime List, a score of 5.47. At least it ruled as the best Japanese anime for over 10 years. Not many anime can do that. By the way, Katsudo Shashin is only the earliest anime in Japan and not the earliest animation globally. There is still debate as to what the earliest animation was. The work of Pauvre Pierrot, which was hand-drawn by Charles-Émile Reynaud in 1892, with more than 500 individual images, or Humorous Phases of Funny Faces, a 1906 stop-motion animation by British-American producer James Stewart Blackton. However, from a technical point of view, the first three are far from the anime we are familiar with now. Now, the closest thing to a preservation and viewing experience should be the Phantasmagory made by Emile Cole in 1908. After all, it was the first animated film in the world to be produced using traditional animation techniques. During the period when anime was born, manga was also undergoing reforms. Inspired by Natsume Soseki, Okamoto Ippei began to draw manga and successfully integrated literary content into manga, becoming a pioneer of story manga. In 1915, he founded Japan's first manga artist group, the Tokyo Manga Association. Then, in 1917, Japanese anime really started to develop. There are 3 people who take the lead: Shimokawa Oten, Kitayama Setaro, and Kochi Junichi. The 3 of them were basically influenced by the original manga artists, such as Kitazawa Yasuji, and began to study manga and animation. If we disregard the 3-second anime of 1907 and Tennenshoku Katsudo Shashin, an already lost anime that premiered in January 17 by an unknown author, Imokawa Mukozo Genkanban no Maki in January 1917, and Dekobo Shingacho Mea no Shipai, published by the same person, Shimokawa Oten, in February of that year, are Japan's first professionally animated films. It's a pity that the two works only got a score of 5.36 and 5.38 on MyAnimeList, which did not end Katsudo Shashin's record of the highest score in Japanese anime for 10 consecutive years. Then came The Battle of a Monkey and a Crab by Kitayama Setaro in May 1917. The last one is Namakura Gatana, released by Kochi Junichi in June of 1917. I personally think that Kitayama Setaro has made the most significant contribution to the anime industry among these people. He established the first specialized anime studio in Japan, which has played a fundamental role in cultivating anime talent and institutionalizing anime production. And he also made money through making animated commercials, which the other two had not done. In this way, the manga and anime industries began to develop slowly. Although the status and salary of artists in those days were not very high, they still continued to create with enthusiasm. Then, in 1923, Japan's first manga idol appeared in the Asahi Shimbun. But also considering that a disaster occurred in the same year, the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake, there was a huge loss in a large number of materials and talents. That's when manga artists started to draw positive types of manga to inspire the people living after the Tokyo earthquake. After Japan entered the Showa period in 1926, manga developed rapidly, and various new manga associations were established. Not only young people, but also some adults started to like reading manga. Of these, Norakuro, which Tagawa Suiho began serializing in 1931, was the most influential. It was serialized for 10 years, reflecting intense militarism and catering to the backdrop of the imminent start of World War II at the time. In the early days of World War II, Japanese manga artists were focused on making manga that could promote the military, but it didn't go well. At the same time, due to the regulations of the Intelligence Bureau and the shortage of paper, the Japanese manga industry at that time was in a state of decline. Still, anime had a chance to develop before then. In 1932, Japan's first adult anime was born, which would be considered hentai in modern terms. Produced by Hakuzan Kimura, it is called Sumi Boat. This work initially had 2 parts, but when the first part was just released, it was blocked by the Japanese government, and the 35mm film was confiscated. Later, replicas of 16mm film began to appear on the market, and the masses gave it several nicknames in order to protect this classic. In the era when the word hentai was still mainly used as an adjective rather than a noun, one of its nicknames was manga. The nickname of the world's first hentai is manga. I wonder how Katsushika Hokusai would feel if he was still alive. Anyway, Sumi Boat still exists after 80 years. Still, there's no way to make such a film on the internet, because that 10-minute film is sealed in the National Film Archive of Japan. According to the video's donor, this film will not be made public. According to available information, the main content of this film is no different from the current ones, and it may even be more complicated. I searched Google for half a day, but couldn't get any information about this film, so I directly went to Japanese websites and translated them one by one. I'm pretty excited about being the first YouTuber to explain Japan's first hentai in English. This 10-minute story happened at the Sumidagawa Fireworks Festival. A shop owner's daughter invited a man to come over. The behavior of these two people just so happened to be seen by a boat owner who was going down the river. The daughter's stepmother also came over to the fireworks festival. At this time, the stepmother waved to the boat owner from the shore, and then the boat owner and the stepmother... In the end, the shop owner's daughter saw the scene. I believe the plot of the second part is about these 4 people together. Although the story is not much different from modern films, the black and white images are simple and of low quality because of the time. In 1933, an anime short film called Chikara to Ona no Yo no Naka, in English called Within the World of Power and Women, was born. In those days, cast voice actors did not exist. Masaoka Kenzo selected actors of that time to be recorded in his works, so Japan's first anime with synced, pre-recorded voices and Japan's first generation of cast voice actors appeared. However, the quality of the anime I mentioned earlier is too low, and the duration is very short, making it difficult for viewers to be interested in anime. At that time, what really represented the highest quality of Japanese anime was that in 1945, the Japanese government produced Japan's first feature-length anime, Momotaro Sacred Sailors, to promote militarism and call on the Japanese youth to join the Navy. At the same time, Ofuji Nobuto's silhouette animation gained international recognition for the first time on behalf of Japanese anime. Even so, Japanese anime still lives in the shadow of Disney animation. As early as 1937, when the average length of Japanese anime was still under 10 minutes, Disney released the world's first feature-length animation, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The Japanese people realized that surpassing Disney was the only way out for Japanese anime. Still, they had no spare capacity after the earthquake and war, whether in the anime or manga industries, and it was not possible unless it was reborn after a fire, like a phoenix. But they did it. The man known as the God of Manga and a group of manga artists whose names are still carried on until modern times. They had successfully brought Japanese manga and anime to a new peak, the exploration period of Japanese anime.